Well, Tom, Sharell was the co-owner of this nightclub here behind me along Brady Avenue, Opium. Her friends say that they are shocked and devastated by this tragic loss. On Sunday, Gwinnett County Police say 44-year-old Sharell Canty was killed in a home in Grayson. Sharell was the co-owner of Opium Nightclub and the life of the party.
Sharell's about her business. Sharell put everybody in a position to win with her. She took everybody to the top with her, including me. She was a happy person. She wanted everybody to have fun. She just wanted everybody to live their life in.
Police have accused 48-year-old Stephany Byrom of killing Canty. She faces several charges, including felony murder, malice murder, and aggravated assault. Investigators say it's a domestic-related homicide. Tajay Henry is the manager of the nightclub and a close friend.
She was a powerhouse co-owner of Atlanta's buzzing Opium Nightclub, a magnetic figure in the city's nightlife scene, until May 24th, when Sharell Canty was found shot twice in the head inside a Grayson home. The suspect arrested the same day? Her own ex-wife. A deadly end to a relationship that turned fatal in seconds. What really happened to Sharell Canty? The story of Sharell Canty is the story of a woman who made rooms feel alive. She was a promoter, a business owner, a force of nature in a city that runs on music, energy, and connection. But on the morning of May 24, 2026, in a neighborhood in Grayson, Georgia, a neighbor walked outside and saw something that didn't belong in the still of a Sunday morning. They called 911. And nothing about Atlanta's nightlife world would feel the same again. You're watching Case Signal, the channel where we follow the evidence, honor the victims, and refuse to look away from the cases that demand our attention. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe, because stories like Sharell Canty's are exactly why this channel exists. The people behind these headlines weren't statistics. They were somebody's everything. And they deserve to be remembered fully, loudly, and by name. To understand what happened to Sharell Canty, you have to understand who she was, not just in the final weeks of her life, but in the years she spent building something real in a city that doesn't give its crown away easily. Atlanta has one of the most competitive and vibrant nightlife cultures in the American South. It is a city where the entertainment industry, the music world, and Black excellence intersect every single weekend in venues that draw thousands. Breaking through in that world doesn't happen by accident. It takes hustle, vision, relationships, and an unmistakable presence. Sharell Canty had all four. Canty, 44 years old at the time of her death, was a co-owner of Opium Nightclub, one of Atlanta's well-known entertainment venues. But her footprint in the industry extended well beyond the walls of a single club. She was a promoter, the kind of person whose name on a flyer meant the room would be packed, whose phone calls got returned, whose presence at an event elevated it. She hosted LGBTQ+ events and was a respected and beloved figure in Atlanta's queer community, someone who used her platform to make space for people who didn't always find it elsewhere. Her friend and co-worker Tajay Henry, who worked alongside her at Opium, described Canty's pull in plain and memorable terms. Sharell has her own aura, Henry said. When she walks into a club, everybody knows Sharell's here. They know to bring out her zoo, bring out her Dom Perignon, and we're gonna have a ball. That description, equal parts magnetism and joy, was echoed by nearly everyone who came forward in the days after her death. Former WNBA player Tamara Young, who had played for the Atlanta Dream, described Canty as one of her favorite people. She wrote on Facebook that learning of Canty's death felt like a sick dream, that she was hurting so bad typing the words. "You were a real one, a good one, a heart of gold," Young wrote. "You wanted people to be happy and enjoy themselves." Then came the detail that made the tribute land like a punch. "Had I known Thursday night would be our last dinner and night kicking it, I would have just stayed longer." That Thursday, just 3 days before the neighbor's 911 call. 3 days between a dinner between friends and a crime scene on Wilkerson Way. Grayson, Georgia is a community in unincorporated Gwinnett County, located roughly 30 miles northeast of downtown Atlanta. It sits in one of the fastest-growing counties in the state, a place where new subdivisions have risen steadily over the past 2 decades and where quiet, suburban family life is the defining character of the neighborhoods. Residents describe it as the kind of place where nothing really happens, where the streets are new and the neighbors wave from their driveways. The 300 block of Wilkerson Way fit that description perfectly. According to local residents who would later speak to reporters, It was a newer, family-friendly area close enough to Grayson's small downtown to feel connected but residential enough to feel private. It was, by all accounts, the last place anyone expected a homicide. At 8:42 in the morning on Sunday, May 24, 2026, the Gwinnett County Police Department received a call from a neighbor on Wilkerson Way. The neighbor had discovered what appeared to be a dead person. Officers arrived on the scene and found a woman's body inside the residence. At that stage they couldn't say much. What killed her wasn't immediately clear. The Gwinnett County Homicide Unit and crime scene investigators were called to the scene, and for most of that Sunday, the official posture was careful and measured. Sergeant Jennifer Richter, speaking to reporters, chose her words precisely. "We are just trying to rule out any possibility of any criminal activity," she said, "or just really find out exactly what took place." Neighbor Jordan Stallworth described the moment the street changed. "All I saw was a bunch of police cars surrounded the area and an ambulance and yellow tape on the house," Stallworth told Atlanta News First. "The weight of it sank in quickly. It kinda makes me feel like we should move," Stallworth said, "because it's kind of scary. It was really scary just to think that something like that could happen in this little area like Grayson." For most of that Sunday, the investigation was still classified as a death of unknown origin. Investigators were methodical. Crime scene technicians moved through the home. Evidence was documented and collected. Detectives pieced together what the physical scene told them while canvassing the neighborhood for anyone who might know something. By Sunday night, the picture had shifted entirely. Gwinnett County Police confirmed that 44-year-old Sharell Canty had been killed inside that home, and that the manner of death was not a mystery. It was a homicide. Specifically, a domestic homicide. Later that same day they arrested 48-year-old Stephany Byrom of Grayson. According to arrest warrants subsequently obtained by Atlanta news station 11 Alive, investigators determined that Byrom had shot Canty twice in the head. The arrest happened swiftly. By Sunday evening Byrom was in custody. The case that had opened as a death of unknown origin had become a murder investigation with a suspect behind bars before the day was over. Byrom, 48, was also a resident of Grayson. Multiple reports described her as Canty's ex-wife, and the broader context of the relationship, the history between them, the circumstances that brought them both to that address on Wilkerson Way, was something authorities were still working to publicly define in the days following the arrest. Police confirmed the case was domestic in nature, though they stopped short of publicly disclosing the full nature of the relationship between Canty and Byrom in their official statements. What the arrest warrants made clear was the physical reality of what had happened inside that home. Sharell Canty had been shot twice in the head. There was nothing ambiguous about the cause of death. This was not an accident. This was not a mystery. This was, by the assessment of Gwinnett County investigators, a deliberate act of domestic violence that ended a woman's life on a quiet suburban Sunday morning. Byrom was charged with malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. In Georgia, malice murder is the most serious homicide charge, requiring prosecutors to prove that the killing was intentional and carried out with malice aforethought, a deliberate and unjustifiable disregard for human life. The inclusion of felony murder alongside it reflects the layered approach Gwinnett County prosecutors took in building their case from the earliest hours of the investigation. On Monday, May 25, Gwinnett County Police publicly released the names of both the victim and the suspect, and Byrom's mugshot was released by police the following Tuesday morning. She remained in custody at the Gwinnett County Jail. "Right now, we do believe that this was an isolated incident," Sergeant Richter said, "so there should be no concern for the public at this time." The speed of the arrest was notable. Domestic homicide cases can sometimes stretch for days or weeks before a suspect is identified and charged, particularly when the initial cause of death is unclear. In this case, investigators moved with urgency. The combination of physical evidence at the scene, the forensic nature of the wounds, 2 gunshot wounds to the head, and what detectives uncovered in the course of their canvass and examination allowed them to make an arrest within the same calendar day as the discovery of Canty's body. The investigation remained active in the days that followed, with Gwinnett County authorities continuing to examine the full scope of what led to the shooting. A formal motive had not been publicly stated as of reporting, though the domestic classification of the case placed the killing within one of the most documented and devastating categories of violent crime in the United States. Domestic violence homicide carries a particular weight because by definition the perpetrator is someone the victim knew. Someone who had shared space with them, shared history with them, shared, in this case according to multiple accounts, a marriage. The terror of that category of crime is precisely that the danger doesn't come from a stranger in the dark. It comes from someone who once sat across a table from you, who knew your habits and your rhythms and your address. According to the CDC, intimate partner violence accounts for roughly 1 in 5 homicide victims in the United States each year, with women bearing a disproportionate share of that toll. Sharell Canty was 44 years old, at the height of a career she had spent years building with a community that loved her, when her life ended at the hands of someone she had once stood before and made a promise. The grief that followed her death was loud and immediate. In Atlanta's nightlife and entertainment community, words spread quickly. Social media filled with tributes from promoters, club owners, entertainers, and fans. Tamara Young's Facebook post was one of the most widely shared, raw, personal, the kind of message that turns grief into something other people can hold on to. "This feels like a sick dream," she wrote. "One of my favorite people. I'm hurting so bad typing this." Tijai Henry, who had worked alongside Canty at Opium and knew her as both a colleague and a friend, gave voice to what so many were feeling. "It just wasn't believable," Henry said. "We're all just mourning right now. We're all missing our sister, missing our friend, missing Sharell." Henry made clear that Canty's legacy would not be sealed away with her death. "Sharell gonna tell us to party and ball like she's still here," he said. "We're going to keep her legacy alive. We're gonna keep Opium alive." Henry also described Canty's professional impact in terms that went beyond affection. She was a people person. Everyone loved her, respected her, everyone wanted to be around. She knew how to run a business. She knew what to do to keep the business going. She had great partners, she had great staff. She just had people in place that helped her align the business and take it to the top. These were not the words of someone describing a peripheral figure in Atlanta's entertainment scene. They were the words of a community describing the loss of a cornerstone. As of the time this script was completed, Stephany Byrom remained in custody at the Gwinnett County Jail, held on charges of malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. Formal court proceedings were in their early stages, and the case remained under active investigation. Prosecutors had not yet publicly presented the full scope of the evidence they intended to bring to court, nor had a trial date been set. The question of motive, the circumstances that led a Sunday morning to end with 2 gunshots and a woman dead inside her own home, remained something the criminal justice process would work to answer in the weeks and months ahead. What is already known, and what will not change regardless of how the legal proceedings unfold, is this. Sharell Canty was 44 years old. She was a co-owner of Opium Nightclub. She was a promoter who shaped Atlanta's entertainment landscape for years. She was a fierce and celebratory presence in Atlanta's LGBTQ+ community. She had dinner with a close friend on Thursday evening. By Sunday morning she was gone. The last dinner. The last night out. The last time Tamara Young would see her friend, not knowing there would be no next time. There is a particular cruelty to domestic homicide cases that the criminal charges and court dates and legal procedures can sometimes obscure. It is not just that a life was ended. It is that it was ended by someone close. Someone the victim had history with, had trusted, had made space for in their world. Sharell Canty didn't die in a random act of street violence. She was killed in a home on a quiet street, on a Sunday morning when the rest of Grayson was waking up to an ordinary day. Her friends have made their intentions clear. They will not let her name fade. They will keep Opium alive. They will keep Sharell's presence in every room she used to own by simply walking in. Sharell has her own aura, Tijai Henry said. And auras, it turns out, outlast the people who carry them. Passed on by those who loved them, kept alive in the spaces they built, spoken into every room where someone pauses and says, "Sharell was here." Everybody knew when Sharell was here. The Gwinnett County Police Department continues to investigate this case. If you have information relevant to the death of Sharell Canty, you are encouraged to contact the Gwinnett County Police Department directly. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, the National Domestic Violence Hotline can be reached at 1-800-799-7233, or by texting START to 88788. This is Case Signal. We follow the signal wherever the case leads. If this story moved you, share it, because awareness is how communities protect themselves and how victims are never forgotten. Subscribe and we'll see you on the next case.